Ladies and gentlemen, it's Guitar 5000. A lot of you wanted to know, how did I start playing guitar? Well, if you want to know the tragic, heartwarming, heartbreaking, triumphant story of how this instrument became an extension of my body, I'll tell you. But first, we got to go into the time machine. Let's go back to the time I was 14 years old. 14-year-old boy. Actually, no, 14-year-old man. I was a 14-year-old man who just graduated from middle school. And on my way to high school, ladies and gentlemen, high school time. It's time to choose your classes, especially your electives. And ladies and gentlemen, I was a huge music lover. Huge. I had hundreds of songs in my computer, which back then was a huge accomplishment because it took 3 hours to download each song. 56K slow connection. The world was a different place. The internet was slow, and there were dinosaurs running around everywhere. Anyway, so when it came time to choose my classes, I chose music. I wanted to be a musician. And on the first day of music class, my teacher approaches me, Mrs. Smith is his name. He says, hey Reginald, would you like to be a part of the marching band? I'm like, of course, that sounds great. And he's like, okay, well, let me show you to your instrument. So we go to the instrument closet, and on the way, I'm thinking in my mind, all these images of the marching bands I've seen before. The snare players were so cool. They were like... And I was just like, this is awesome. So he shows me to my instrument. He points to them, and they're cymbals. And I'm like, what are those? He says, these are cymbals. These are what you'll be playing in the marching band. And I'm like, I don't want to play. Hey, you can't have me playing those cymbals, man. You can't have me doing that, man. That's not cool. I want to play the snare. He says, okay, so here's the problem with the snare. We have a lot of snare players already. They're already really good. No one wants to play the cymbals, and since you're new, you have to play the cymbals. I'm like, well, you sure sold me. Anyway, how about this, Mr. Smith? How about we forget that I said yes to the whole marching band thing. Just forget about that for a while. How about you teach me how to play rock and roll on the guitar? That's cool. He says, we don't actually offer guitar lessons in this school, but I can teach you how to play guitar. Like, yes. He says, I have my own personal guitar that I can loan to you, and I'll teach you how to play. Great. So life is good. No more cymbals. Oh, well, you still have to play the cymbals. That's part of your course requirement. You have to be in the marching band and play the cymbals. I'm like, fine. You teach me guitar. I play cymbals. Your little marching band. I'll do it for you. He's like, what? Well, that's a deal. All right. Shake hands. Shake on it. He brings me the guitar. He hands it to me and says, this is my own personal guitar. Guard it with your life. No one else can play it. Make sure nothing happens to it. Mr. Smith, ain't nothing gonna happen to this guitar, man. Everything's cool, man. We shook on it, took it home that day. Ladies and gentlemen, my life back then was basically marching band during the day. And at night, I go into the Bat Cave and I practice this cool instrument that I just got called the guitar. I was like, that's exactly how it sounded at first. And it was just like, I had to just resist the pain in my fingers, ladies and gentlemen, the developing new calluses, and I had to just persevere. And ladies and gentlemen, eventually it started sounding good. I learned my C chord, and then I learned my A minor chord, and then I learned my, the G chord was tough. And it only took me an hour to tune the guitar every time. That's not bad, right? Everything's going well except for these two problems. One was a small problem, one was a big problem. The small problem was this. Let's start small. Every time, in my school, I was the only guy who played the guitar, and I carried it with me everywhere. So being that, ladies and gentlemen, people come up to me all the time and says, hey man, pull that guitar out, man. Play some Jimi Hendrix, man. Play some country music, man. Hey yo, play some Wyclef, man. And I'm just like, okay, I'll play for you, but just give me 1 hour to tune the guitar. Give me an hour. I'll be back in an hour. That was always my way out of it, ladies and gentlemen, because I could not play the guitar that well to entertain people. We can't entertain people with just C and A minor all day, all night with no songs. Anyway, so that was the small problem, but I got around that. The other issue was I had to bring the guitar to school and back home every day. Normally it doesn't seem like a big issue, but where I lived at the time, ladies and gentlemen, where I lived, East Orange, New Jersey, at the time, was not the safest place to be. I've been robbed several times. They took my money, took my games, all this other stuff. So now that I have something that's blatantly obvious, like a big guitar in my back, which at the time was bigger than me, I had to make sure that every time I walked home, I was safe, looked around the corner, this way, that way, you know, make sure nothing was happening. And for the most part, ladies and gentlemen, it was all smooth sailing. Nothing really happened until one day. I was coming out of school, walking home, and I just noticed in the far distance where I make my first corner, when my first turn on the corner, I saw a bunch of pedestrians with the look of horror on their faces, looking in a certain direction. I was like, what's going on? And I come closer, it looks like a fight. Okay, fights happen all the time. That's what happens after school. But this wasn't a regular kind of fight. It looks like the guy, who I recognized, by the way, everyone told me about him before, as I just joined the school. He was like this high level gang member or whatever. And it looked like he was fighting several people who didn't want to fight, just picking them at random and just having at him. And I'm just like, you know what? Let me just walk as fast as I can and I'll be all right. And everything's going well until I hear someone say, hey, yo! Look behind. It was him, ladies and gentlemen. It was him. Hey, yo, you got 50 Cent? I'm like, no, I didn't buy 50 Cent's new album. You don't got 50 Cent? And as soon as he said that, ladies and gentlemen, I was tripped onto the floor by him, and I had no idea how he did it, but I was tripped onto the floor, and I was attacked for what felt like forever. I didn't know what was. I had my eyes closed and my head covered like this. I had no idea what's going on. I didn't know what was a punch, what was a kick. All I could think about is, will the guitar still be here when this is over? So it ended. He scattered away. I opened my eyes and I just noticed everyone was looking at me. There was like blood running down my face and stuff like that. I got up, I looked down, and the guitar was still there. Yes. Picked it up, brought it home. Everything looked fine until I opened the bag. It looked like someone used it as a weapon somewhere. Like maybe someone like threw it into an amp or something like that at the end of the show. It was cracked, bruised, battered, dents all over it. I didn't know how I was gonna survive meeting Mrs. Smith. But ladies and gentlemen, I brought it to the school next day. I said, Mrs. Smith, this is what happened. I got attacked by a random stranger, but I didn't let anyone play the guitar. I didn't let anyone play it. He opened up the bag and he's like, this looks pretty bad, but I'll see if I can fix it. We'll see what happens. No promises. We'll see. Ladies and gentlemen, I went home that night with no guitar. I thought my guitar playing career was over. I used to go home, I used to play my C chord and my A minor chord and my G chord, and that used to get me out of my homework. My mom used to say, hey, did you do your homework? I'm doing my homework. This is my homework now. I don't do any math or science. So that few weeks of not having a guitar was really hard. I really thought it was the end and I should just be a non-musician. But, ladies and gentlemen, one day I got to school and Mrs. Smith says, I have a surprise for you. I'm like, what's up, man? Pulls out the guitar. Looks almost brand new, ladies and gentlemen. Looked like nothing happened to it except for this little one crack on the end. He says, I got it fixed. I'm like, yes, thank you. So, gave him a hug. Took the guitar, started playing it. He's like, but you cannot take it home. That's fine. That's fine. It wasn't working out. But ladies and gentlemen, as I strummed my first few chords, I just remembered, Mrs. Smith didn't have to do that for me. She didn't have to take his personal guitar, loan it to me, let me get it messed up, fix it again, and still allow me to play it. He didn't have to do that, but he did it anyway. And to this day, he doesn't take credit for where I've gone, where music, all the traveling I've done, all the shows I've done, and the fact that I can say music is my entire living and this is my full-time career. He takes credit for none of that. But I still want to say thank you, man. You sacrificed your own stuff for me. I feel special. Anyway, he's just a really nice guy too. So I don't know, I'm not that special, but he's just a really awesome guy. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that was my story of how I got started playing guitar. If you play an instrument, I want to hear your story. I want to know what you went through. And also, if there's anyone in your life who made a sacrifice for your success, tell me that story too. I'm reading your story.